Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another GGNA's webinar series designed to help our clients and others to respond to these challenging times. My name is Pete Lasher, a leader of GGNA's higher education practice, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Jacqueline Nyman, Vice President, External Relations at the University of Ottawa. Jacqueline is responsible for a diverse portfolio of activities that focus on raising the university's profile, establishing strategic and internal and external partnerships, fostering stakeholder engagement, and growing revenue to support the university in its research and teaching mission. And somehow she has the time to serve as an associate professor at the Telfair School of Management. She's one of the leading voices and thought leaders in North American philanthropy, and we are thrilled that she is here with us today. Jacqueline, thanks for joining us.
Pete, I'm so thrilled to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So you have held leadership positions at 4 major universities, as well as leading the United Way Canada. Can you describe your career arc for us and share what lessons you've learned along the way?
It's been really an exciting opportunity. I think starting very young, I wanted to be the go-to person. So I think I've put my hand up a lot in my career, and in doing so, I often took on things that I may not have had all the competencies for, but I think what I've known to do from an early age is to ask others to help me out. So I have a great network, right? So part of this has really been to not only be a go-to person and develop that reputation as a go-to person, but putting my hands up with a can-do spirit, and that I'll handle that, I'll take that on, knowing that I have a network to draw upon. So I think over time, what I've learned in the career arc is it's an old saying, but it's still a good one: under promise, but with some ambition, right? Like, let people know, give a taste, and over deliver. But if you do over promise, you better deliver. So sometimes that meant a lot of very long hours in the day and long hours in the week. I think also you need to know and live your product. So in my case, continuing education, I came into the profession having an undergrad degree. I went on to do my MBA, I went on to do my doctorate. So that for me, it was really living the university campus experience, living our seminars that were available, and continuing to learn myself. So I'd say definitely know your product. And then ultimately you have to take care of yourself, right? And I learned that lesson many times, and sometimes in difficult ways, but you need to take care of yourself and you need to take care of others. So to me, that means leading with authenticity and really carving out for yourself your values, and then having a values-based leadership approach. So really walking the talk. And that's not always easy, right? If you want to be the go-to person and really deliver, and you want to have values-based leadership, it really means digging deep with your integrity, and being able to balance what you need for yourself in a healthy way, but also not being shy to speak up when you see things that are inequities or difficulties, and really leading with those values and giving people an opportunity to live their full life experience as well.
I think such an important point about living your values. You know this as well as anyone. The unfortunate truth is that in a profession where 70% of the fundraisers are women, only 20% currently serve as vice presidents. I wonder if you would share your perspective on this fact, and if there's any advice that you would offer to women listening who may aspire to become vice presidents themselves.
Well, I'd say that universities are notorious for gender imbalance, right? So in a university context, but it really is a social situation. While we're working on it at universities, there's a lot of unconscious bias. People know that they hire people who look like them, and when traditionally men have been the leaders on campus, then they hire men around them. And I see this still, and you'd think that in 2021, it would be kind of a no-brainer to want gender balance. Without effective policies and programs, often I still see people they know someone in their network looks like them, be it a lack of diversity for those of us who are Caucasian, or trusting somebody who looks like you. So I think really understanding unconscious bias is important for us to move forward. I look at my own life. Look, as wonderful as my partner in life is, household and life commitments, often women take on more of them, whether it's by choice or not. And that can impede in our success because there's only so much you can do in a day. So I've often heard, beside or behind every good man is a great woman. And my experience even with donors and being part of a C-suite is that most often the C-suite is men, and they often have a partner, a wife or a partner who take care of the household management. But very rarely have I seen a woman who's out in front who has a husband or a partner taking care of household management. So that imbalance, it's really difficult for women to step into the fore and to be able to offer their all when they still have a significant workload in their household. So I'd say we're often faced with those life choices, and women often will defer a promotion, defer an opportunity because they're kind of killing themselves trying to commit to the career ambition and the household labor, the unpaid labor, as I like to say it. So look, that's kind of the lay of the land. But for me, solutions, like I say, get to know the biases and try to resolve them in your own life. On competency, make sure your work's impeccable and use data and strategy to really back your work up. I mean, be unquestionable in terms of your source for your decision making. On voice, be persistent at the table. You know, relationship skills are key. And if you have relationship skills plus fact and evidence-based decision making, what a great combination for really raising your voice above others, not meaning that you're speaking louder, but really raising your voice above others because you have this legitimate leadership position that you can deploy. And then finally, on social capital, remember to have a sense of humor. I mean, if you're going to balance your very serious output, which I've always delivered, have serious output, but if you can have a sense of humor along the way, it goes a long way to ensuring that you're known not only for your competency, but also for your attitude, which can be positive and encouraging, and you can be also a go-to person for your sense of energy. So for women out there, create a great circle of women above you in the organization, beside you as peers, ask for coaching from others and bring others along. Be generous with your time and energy, but you have to take care of yourself. And frankly, the dishes can wait.
Well, yeah, you put all of those in play when you came back to your alma mater at U Ottawa. So, can you describe the state of play, the state of play at the advancement program when you returned home?
So, University of Ottawa grew up while I was gone. I was gone for almost 20 years, and we went from kind of a third-tier research university in the country to a top tier in the country. So we're now in the top 7 or 8, and that was not the case 20 years ago. So we grew really fast and really strategically. Internationally, we're in the top 175 universities. So we really punch heavy now. But the resources for advancement, fundraising, staffing, advancement activities didn't keep pace with the expectations. So now we were underfunded and as a result, underperforming. So there was also an excuse that was offered. So different institutions have different characteristics, but we're both English and French, or a bilingual institution. And there was a bit of an excuse that was offered that half of our alumni were French and many from Quebec, and that this wasn't a philanthropic group. And so that was a fallacy that was an easy trope to kind of hide behind, like, well, you know, they're not really philanthropic. And so one of the things that I was able to do also was to quickly dispel that myth using data, again, and evidence base. So the things we were hiding behind were kind of our fast growth, that happened, and also maybe just giving ourselves a bit of excuses. So that's the program I came back to, Pete.
So what was that? What was the myth that you dispelled? Like, what did your research find?
Well, so data, right? So a lot of the hypotheses about what were going on, I had my own hypotheses, but a lot of the lore that I was hearing, I was able to look at the data. So first we discovered that our Francophone and Quebec-based, or Francophones from across Canada, those donors are as generous as non-Francophones. So first of all, putting that out there, like, oh, well, half our population is French. Like I said, it was a trope. It was something that hadn't really been explored. It was playing on lore, but also nationally, the charitable data might show that, but at the University of Ottawa, it doesn't show that. So first thing I did overall was data, tested some hypotheses, found some other things going on. We have brilliant business intelligence people at our shop. And so I did that analysis on our performance, on our ROI, on our donor database, on the investment levels and advancement over time. Like, these had really declined over time. So what I was able to do with that data was model for our university leadership team, so the VPs, presidents, et cetera, deans, why we were underperforming and propose solutions through reinvestment. So for me, building a high team meant that I was going to analyze what was going wrong, share that, be really transparent, and fix it at the source. And so we engaged consultancy, might have been GG&A along the way, help us do some of that analysis. And we created a training program to build the team competency and to build performance management systems. These were data-driven based on our data as well as on benchmarking. But to do that, you need to create a team culture where people buy in, right? So by being really transparent and painting the picture that through reinvestment, we could succeed and that we were one team. We may be 10 faculties. We may have pan-university priorities, but we are one team. So being able to do that, we were able to build on other measures of success. So sharing prospects, trading prospects. I call it kind of the volleyball analogy, right? Someone's going to set and someone's going to spike. So sharing credit, looking at activity levels, but also looking at satisfaction of donors and looking at our university community, our deans, et cetera, and how satisfied they were by the advancement operations services. So that's what we did to go about rebuilding this.
What I love about what you're saying, Jacqueline, is it's too easy for us to look at these traditional metrics of, you know, and consultants like us are notorious for saying you have to have these best practice accountability standards. But what I love about what I'm hearing you say is actually there's a lot of different stakeholders who are involved in this process, and we really should be measuring their attitudes, understanding, and ultimately helping them understand how we all can make it. Because that's, I think, as we see it, what defines a high-performing program is not simply a high-performing advancement program. It's a high-performing university program.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of my colleagues has made this point a couple of weeks ago, and I love this, and I've been dying to ask you the question. So I'm glad we have this forum. We have this forum to do it. But they said that we operate at the nexus of institutional vision, brand, and resources. Can you describe what that means to you?
Sure. So to me, matching brand and vision to resources is both an internal and an external effort. So let me explain that. First, you need to match the resourcing of your advancement operation and the whole university, but let's talk about advancement right now, to your ambition. So otherwise you set yourself up for failure. You can have ambition here. I always say, you can want the performance of a Mercedes-Benz, but if you only buy a Toyota Corolla, you're not going to get there, right? Like you can't fund the Toyota Corolla and expect the Mercedes-Benz output here. So you've got to be able to match the resourcing of your advancement operation to your ambition. Otherwise, we set ourselves and our stakeholders up for failure, and that hurts the brand. And so you have to set the enterprise up resource-wise to match the vision and the ambition. And second, externally, you got to invite the stakeholders in to help out to make that vision a reality. So this is very reciprocal, right? Can they contribute resources? Our terms, time, talent, and treasure. What can they contribute to take things to the next level? So brand value for me is ultimately the outcome of investing wisely internally and realistically, right? And then soliciting funds appropriately so you can drive the organization forward with all of the stakeholders, internal and external, putting skin in the game together. So to me, that's the nexus, is that reciprocal relationship in and out, but being realistic. Don't buy a Toyota Corolla and expect it to perform like a Mercedes-Benz.
So true. Well, let's go deeper in this. So how have you engaged your institutional and academic leadership in the development process? And well, then we'll start there and then I'll ask a follow-up.
Sure. So you need to create a baseline of understanding among internal academic leadership. And so we've held many training and information sessions to ensure that everyone understands the basics, right? And you have to do that every year. Deans turn over, academic leadership turns over. You have to be really vigilant to make sure that you're not assuming people know what you're talking about. People have a perception often of fundraising from what do they see, door to door, bake sales and bottle drives. They think this is fundraising. I mean, the real understanding of a professional major gift and transformational giving advancement operation, fundraising operation is really not clearly understood. So I say you have to take the time to not only train people up and create that baseline, but that's evergreen. That's an ongoing project. And then you need to build the relationship capital. And this isn't always easy for those of us working in universities, but I also saw it in United Way. There can be us and them, right? Central, decentral, different captains coming in different levels of, many chefs in the kitchen. So the social capital between and among leaders, between the development office, among peer fundraisers, without this, you don't have the trust that you need to really build donor-centered relationships or to maximize the opportunity. So when things inevitably become challenging, like misfires of the donor or deans competing for a donor, if you haven't built those relationships, the outcomes are poor and it becomes a bit of a war, as we've all seen. But if you have the trusting relationships, then you can usually work together to find better solutions. So in other words, you can expand the pie instead of just carving it up, splitting it off, and having these trade-offs. So to me, a win-win is not just carving it up 50-50 or saying, oh, well, how about you do this, or we'll pitch two things to the donor. What more can we have as a vision? And those relationships, if you don't have trust on the table, then people see it as getting, the smaller piece or something lesser than, unless they're really trying to engage with you to make it bigger. So my aim is always to make things better, to find a more ample solution than just to try to negotiate some lower level settlement. And then with strong relationships, if you've taken the time to build them, you can do that much more easily. You have a bit of a trust shorthand, right? And you can bargain in good faith. And people will work together to expand that pie because they trust that you're going to bring more to the table, if not immediately, over time.
I love this recipe for building trust. It makes such sense to me, but to me, one of the key points you just made is the evergreen nature of this. And just, I mean, I cannot tell you I'm sure at this stage in my career, I've worked with 250 deans over the course of my career, and these poor folks. They come into these roles. It's tough enough because they've been trained as scholars, and now suddenly we've asked them to be administrative leaders, and then we throw in fundraising on top of that. So the investment that we're making to build that trust. You work very closely with the president of the institution. So as you have built trust there, as you've built the relationship, and maybe not just at U Ottawa, but with other leaders, what's key to building a strong partnership between a chief development officer and the organization?
I think first and foremost, you have to build on the trust, right? So you have to be really careful what you promise. You have to move slowly enough that you're not going to have to walk things back. We all have in our career experiences where we've said something, it doesn't come to fruition. You kind of have to walk it back. And you can do that a few times, but if you don't have chips in the bank, that just becomes a bit of your reputation, right? So I think it's really important when you're working with the president of the institution, your board, your campaign cabinet, deans, any level of leadership, that you really reflect upon what it is you're putting on the table. Like, what's your strategy and when are you putting it on? What are you aiming to get to? So if you don't have a clear objective, then I'd say maybe you're too early in what it is you're trying to establish. So with our president, if I was sharing something early and incomplete, like some data or some findings, I'd say, I want you to know this is really early. It's really, some early findings. But what I can tell you right now for sure is we know X, Y, Z. Here's what I'm still looking into. So I've always tried to say, here's where we're at, and then signpost what comes next. I've been sitting at tables looking at data, the president across the table, and seeing errors in it. I'm sure we've all had this experience. You're like, oh, that's not right. I can do the mental math here. So I've been able to just, and in that trusting way, say, look, this is some really early numbers. I'm seeing some of this is really positive. I want to go back to the drawing board and get a little bit more for you. We're getting there, right? So announce the wins, announce the strategy, but be really careful before taking it to the absolutes and delivering a plan and delivering big ideas if you aren't 100% sure that you've got it right. And that will build equity, because then you are that go-to person for the president. They can call on you in the middle of a board meeting. You may not even be on the agenda, and they can trust that you've got them. Because presidents are not, they're not omniscient. Deans aren't omniscient. They need backup, and they need to be able to point at you and say, what do you think of that? And if you've built that trust over time, then they know you've got them. And then that also builds a stronger relationship.
Jacqueline, it's just coming through in just a number of your responses, just how the importance you place on analysis and how you use it to build trust. It's interesting to sort of say, how do we take evidence and use that to build social capital? So I'm struck by that. Let's shift a little bit to your campaign. So describe the status of the university's fundraising campaign when you arrived when you returned to U Ottawa.
So I arrived back in 2018. It was a stalled campaign. They had been without a VP for 18 months. We had some real solid players, like staff on board, really excited to inherit a great team. But it was really small. I'd say I characterize small but mighty, right? And really smart people. But we had I came in August 2018, and we were working under a strategic plan that was entitled Destination 2020. And I'm looking at the date and I'm thinking, oh, that's 18 months out. And we had a campaign that was still very much, it was completely unrealistic that we would finish it by 2020, put it that far. We were really off our target. And so I think I inherited and I love a good challenge, but I inherited an old case for support, right? I inherited a campaign that was not only stalled, but our resources and our results were in decline. So we had peaked, I think, almost 3 years earlier by the time I came on board. And so that was a significant issue because we had a fairly new president on board. He had, taken obviously an investment in me, and it was time for me to turn that around. And so not only did we have a dated case for support, we had a an institutional strategic plan coming within 18 months of its end of 10 years, and volunteers who hadn't been engaged for some time. And a funny anecdote, funny, not funny, I remember calling some of our campaign volunteers to introduce myself. And more often than not, I got, oh, is that campaign still going? And this is our campaign cabinet. So, and it's not for lack of our team trying to engage, but you can only do so many things. Small team under resourced, you're keeping balls in the air. You're going to deal with your best donors first. And let's say that we had some great donors, and there'd been some great giving in the time that there hadn't been a VP. But you can't do it all when you're absolutely short-staffed. So that was the status of the fundraising campaign when I came back.
So let's fast forward to today. You are set to relaunch the campaign. Can you share your strategy, any insights as you move forward to this relaunch?
So yes, it's really exciting. So it's 3 years this August that I will have come back to the university, and we have a brand new case for support we're about to launch. It is aligned with a brand new institutional strategic plan, Transformation 2030. So now we've got a nice long runway. I look for silver linings, and during the pandemic, we were able to take a step back and maybe spend a little bit more time on that than we might have had to do were we traveling and out having that busy donor activity. So we were able to take some more time to do planning, I think, in these past 12 to 14 months that was much needed to press the reset. So we have a new case for support aligned with our new strategic vision and plan for the university. We have buy-in across the institution. We've personally negotiated not only the strategic plan, but the case for support with all the deans and VPs. And we've got a unanimous support, which is also I'd say a small miracle on a university campus. So that's great. We've got campus, some faculties and projects that have deep case for supports that are more, deep. So we have our pan university, but then we have these individual cases for support for areas of priority, and faculties are ready to go with a deeper case. So that's terrific news. We've re-engaged the volunteers on the campaign cabinet who wanted to stay. So we gave them all a big hall pass and said, look, you've given us a lot of years and we're so grateful. If you'd like to stay, we're going to refresh and renew. And we wrote a campaign plan and we gave them detailed job descriptions, and we were really clear on what we're asking for from them. And then we've been able to onboard new ones. And we really took a look at our campaign cabinet and took a look at our diversity, our demographics, age-wise, what kind of contribution. Are people more connectors or are they more askers? Are they philanthropic themselves? Do they have means? Are they people who can give other types of things? And we've really recreated a solid volunteer cabinet, and we're still doing that. And then we spent a lot of time re-onboarding and retraining our volunteers as to the new campaign and the new case for support. We have a brand new, a really refreshed, I shouldn't say brand new, but a refreshed model. So the whole advancement new model, we've restructured completely, both in development and across the advancement operation. And that model was built on data. So there we are, data again. So evidence-based strategy. So really building the levels of positions that we needed inside of a faculty or group of faculties that constitute now a hub. We used to have kind of a one and done, one per faculty or two per faculty. And if there was turnover, then you were one and done. And you'd have this huge lapse with your donors. So we've built hubs to service multiple faculties with, project officer, development officer, manager, directors, sometimes executive directors. So people now come to University of Ottawa and they see a hierarchy where they can see a career path. And that was part of an issue we had with turnover, was people would come and then they kind of top out, they wanted something new, they'd leave. And so we've been able to build a full career model, which is really exciting. And people can see where they can go between hubs or different faculties or grow within and be mentored by more experienced people. So officers are mentored by managers and managers by directors. And then I have to brag, I think I have the best pan-university team in the country, let alone the city. I really invested in the central operation, which was, very, very bare bones. And we've promoted from within. So where we had great talent, everyone who is, here and really demonstrated their talent have been given opportunities to move up. And we've really been able to reinvest and create new roles and exciting roles, and really give people the challenges that they were looking for in the profession. So that new model that builds competency, it builds rewards into our work. There's new trust among the deans and the teams that serve them. And so far, since we've deployed this new hub model, our deans are very satisfied, where they were really, kind of not as happy to begin with. So proud to say we've had our best fundraising year ever at University of Ottawa. And this is tomorrow's the last day of our fiscal year, and I think it's safe to say we will have had our best year in that full collaboration model. So it's a great news.
Oh, well, that's fantastic news. And gosh, and you're doing, of course, all of this during a pandemic. So, and as we were talking before we started, hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here. How has the pandemic changed the way your team has conducted business, and what will it look like once we return to some semblance of normal?
I think this has all taken us to our knees, right? In many different ways. Personally, professionally, people have good days, they have bad days, they have good weeks, bad weeks. I mean, heck, some people just, came back at January 1 going, yay, and really found that month even hard. So I'd say, the obvious, well, hey, we can work well online together, so that's good. But I think more important, we've really built this trusting collegial atmosphere where people can really be themselves. And we're all experiencing the pandemic, as I said, similarly but differently. But we've taken, really shared our personal stories. And I think that's really built a strong sense of collegiality and trust and honesty between us. And so we have each other's backs. And so this team, I think, really feels well supported by their peers. And I put myself right in there because I feel very well supported by my team, and I'm not afraid to be myself. I don't pretend that things are perfect every day. It's been a really rough ride. Many of us have had COVID in our families. Many of us have experienced, tragedies and exhaustion. And while I'm on the third floor of my house with a really nice office, there are colleagues who are working 4 at a dining room table still, right, with their families and homeschooling kids. So I would say that what we've learned is through that trust and sharing that personal element and being honest and maybe a little bit vulnerable, that we share those values and that we've created strong interpersonal relationships. So that with that strength and that trust, I think we have a great model to go back to. So, there's always this question about, if people are working from home, are they really working? So now I think with that trust and that we've proven ourselves, I think we'll go back to a new hybrid model. I think there's so much trust on the table. I think there'll be probably less travel because we've been able to build meaningful, cultivated relationships with donors online. And heck, if I don't have to get on a plane and go to Hong Kong anytime soon, if I can have those relationships in Asia right from my third floor of my office here back at the university when we're allowed back on campus, isn't that great that we can save time, financial capital, build the relationship? And certainly there's a very strong role for in-person meetings, but it doesn't have to be every meeting every time. So I think we're able to do a lot more digitally than we thought we could. And so I'm hopeful that our team's going to come back stronger than ever. I think we'll have a renewed sense of work-life balance, given that we can do a little bit of this hybrid work. And I think we'll really be able to maximize our ability to work together remotely and together and be really efficient as a result.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and thank you for being with us today. This has been super, super valuable. And thanks for everyone else for joining us as well. We're learning from each other all during this remarkable time. if you have questions, please post them on our website. And in the meantime, please contact us if you have any questions about anything that you're experiencing during this time. We'd love to talk with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Be safe.